Your alarm goes off. You reach for your phone before your eyes are even open. You scroll for a minute, maybe 5, and then you tell yourself you'll exercise later. But the real answer is far stranger than a to-do list. Your body was never built to wait until later. For nearly all of human history, the first hour of daylight wasn't optional movement. It was survival. Think about that for a second. 200,000 years of Homo sapiens. Almost none of it spent sitting still at dawn. Your ancestors woke with the light because they had to. There was no snooze button on a lion. There was no ignoring a dry riverbed that needed to be walked to before the heat came. The first hours of the day were for moving, and your body still remembers that, even if your calendar doesn't. Here's what's happening inside you right now, this morning, whether you notice it or not. Your cortisol is spiking. Not from stress. Researchers studying circadian biology, including chronobiologist Till Roneberg, have shown that cortisol naturally surges within the first 30 to 45 minutes after you wake. It's called the cortisol awakening response. It's your body's built-in ignition switch, a hormonal shove meant to get you moving, hunting, gathering, walking. For most of history, that shove was answered. You'd stand up and go find food. You'd walk to water. You'd move your body because moving your body was the only way to eat that day. Today, that same hormonal surge just gets answered with a scroll and a chair. Your ancestors' morning cortisol spike ended in movement. Yours ends in email. That mismatch has a name. Scientists call it evolutionary discordance. Your biology is still issuing instructions written for a world that hasn't existed in 10,000 years. So what happens when you finally do move, even a little in that window? Something switches on. Neuroscientist Wendy Suzuki has spent years studying what a single bout of morning movement does to the brain. Her research shows that even 20 minutes of exercise increases levels of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine almost immediately. Not after weeks, not after a training plan, within the hour. That's not a coincidence. That's your brain rewarding you the exact same way it rewarded a human 40,000 years ago who got up and walked toward the herd instead of staying curled by the fire. Movement used to mean food. Food used to mean survival. So your brain built a reward system around it. And that system is still running, quietly, underneath every choice you make before 9 a.m. Here's where it gets stranger. Your ancestors didn't do cardio. They didn't do reps. They did 7 kinds of movement, repeated almost every single day, without ever naming them. They squatted to gather. They hinged at the hips to lift water or wood. They pushed to move stone or brace against weight. They pulled to climb or drag. They carried loads across long distances. They rotated their torso to throw a spear or swing a tool. And they walked for miles, simply to exist. Squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, rotate, walk. Anthropologist Herman Poncer, who has spent decades studying the Hadza hunter-gatherers of Tanzania, found something that should unsettle anyone sitting in a chair right now. The Hadza move constantly through the day, yet their total daily energy expenditure isn't wildly higher than a sedentary Westerner's. Their bodies simply adapted to near constant, varied, low-intensity motion as the baseline. Not the exception, the baseline. You don't need 7 kinds of movement because a fitness influencer said so. You need them because that's the literal shape of the load your body evolved to expect. Every joint, every tendon, every stabilizing muscle in you was built by a species that squatted, hinged, pushed, pulled, carried, rotated, and walked before the sun was fully up. Skip all 7 for long enough, and your body doesn't relax. It waits. Quietly. It waits for instructions that never come, and it slowly forgets how to answer them well. Why before 9 specifically? This is where chronobiology gets almost eerie. Sachin Panda, who studies circadian rhythms at the Salk Institute, has shown that your body's master clock, sitting in a tiny region of your brain, resets itself based on the first light and first movement it registers each day. Morning activity doesn't just wake you up. It tells every organ, every hormone system, every internal clock in your body what time it is and what kind of day to prepare for. Move early, and your metabolism, your mood chemistry, and even your sleep pressure that night calibrate around that signal. Skip it, and your body waits for a cue that may not arrive until the day is already half spent, if it arrives at all. Your ancestors never had to think about this. There was no choice to skip morning movement, because morning was movement. The two were the same event. You have a choice now. That's new. That's maybe 10,000 years old, against 200,000 years of no choice at all. Your biology hasn't caught up to the fact that staying still is even an option. So picture this instead. Before 9 a.m., your body wants 7 simple things from you. The same 7 things it has wanted since before writing, before agriculture, before fire was fully tamed. It wants you to squat, low and controlled, the way you once would have to gather roots or pick fruit off the ground. It wants you to hinge at the hips, the motion behind every lift your ancestors made from a riverbank or a fallen branch. It wants you to push, whether against the ground, a wall, or your own body weight, echoing every moment a human once braced against danger or effort. It wants you to pull, the motion behind climbing, behind dragging a kill back to camp, behind hauling yourself up onto a ledge. It wants you to carry something, anything, across space. So picture this instead, and behind every lift your ancestors made from a riverbank or a fallen branch. It wants you to push, whether against the ground, a wall, or your own body weight, echoing every moment a human once braced against danger or effort. It wants you to pull, the motion behind climbing, behind dragging a kill back to camp, behind hauling yourself up onto a ledge. It wants you to carry something, anything, across space, the way carrying water or wood shaped human shoulders and cores for millennia. It wants you to rotate through your torso, the movement behind every thrown spear, every swung tool, every twist that let early humans hunt and build. And it wants you to walk. Simply walk. Not for a workout. Just because walking is the oldest instruction your body has ever been given. None of this requires equipment. None of this requires an hour. Your ancestors didn't have gyms. They had mornings, and they had motion, and the two were never separated. You don't need to perform each movement perfectly. You don't need matching gear or a subscription or a coach standing over your shoulder. A door frame can teach your body to pull. A low chair can teach it to hinge. The floor itself can teach it to push. This isn't a program. It's a reminder. One your body has been waiting patiently to receive since before you could speak. And here's something researchers keep circling back to, almost as a footnote, even though it might be the most important detail of all. The order rarely matters. The intensity rarely matters. What matters, again and again, is simply that the movement happens before the rest of the day gets its hooks into you. Before meetings, before decisions, before your attention gets spent on everything except yourself. That's the real reason for the deadline. Not 9 a.m. as a magic number, but 9 a.m. as a stand-in for something older. The window before the world asks anything of you. The window that used to belong entirely to survival, and now, if you let it, can belong entirely to you. There's a deeper layer to this, one that has nothing to do with muscles at all. Psychologist Christopher Randler, who has spent years studying what scientists call chronotype, found something surprising when he tracked people's natural rhythms against their behavior. People who moved earlier in the day, regardless of whether they considered themselves morning people, reported higher proactivity scores throughout the entire day. Not just more energy, more initiative, more willingness to act instead of wait. Think about what that means. The 7 movements aren't just physical maintenance. They're a signal you send to your own nervous system before the world has a chance to send its own signals first. Every notification, every email, every scrolling feed is designed to hijack your attention the moment you're vulnerable to it. And you are most vulnerable in that first hour, when cortisol is already spiking and your brain is searching for something, anything, to direct that energy toward. Your ancestors never had this problem. Their environment gave them exactly one instruction each morning: move or don't eat. Simple, unambiguous. The 7 movements weren't a choice among many. They were the only conversation available between a human body and the world it woke up in. You live inside a different environment now, one built almost entirely to keep you sitting. Your chair was engineered by people who understood ergonomics. Your phone was engineered by people who understood psychology. Almost nothing in your daily environment was engineered by anyone who understood what your skeleton actually expects from a morning. That's the quiet tragedy hiding underneath convenience. The world got easier to survive in, and in doing so, it removed the very cues your body relies on to know it's alive and functioning the way it should. Consider what a joint actually is. Not just a hinge of bone, but a structure built through repeated, varied loading over a lifetime. Cartilage thickens where it's asked to bear weight. Tendons stiffen appropriately where they're pulled against resistance. Bone density increases exactly where mechanical stress tells it to. This isn't metaphor. It's basic physiology, going back to a principle researchers call mechanotransduction, the process by which physical force is converted into biological signals that tell your tissue to adapt. No stress, no signal. No signal, no adaptation. Skip the squat, the hinge, the carry for long enough, and your body doesn't just miss out on strength. It actively begins to interpret the absence of load as evidence that load will never come again, and it downgrades accordingly. This is why the 7 movements matter more than any single workout ever could. They're not about building an impressive body. They're about keeping an ancient conversation open, the one between your skeleton and your environment, the one your ancestors never had to think about because it was simply how every single day began. Here's the twist almost nobody expects. You are not lazy for wanting to skip this. You are not undisciplined for reaching for your phone instead of your shoes. You are simply the first humans in the entire history of your species who have ever had the option to ignore what dawn was telling your body to do. That's not a character flaw. That's an evolutionary blind spot. But blind spots can be seen once you know where to look. Tonight or tomorrow, when your alarm goes off and cortisol surges through you exactly the way it did for every ancestor you've ever had, you'll have a choice they never got to make. You can scroll, or you can answer the oldest instruction your body has ever given you. Squat, hinge, push, pull, carry, rotate, walk. Your alarm goes off, and for the first time maybe, you don't reach for your phone. You reach for the version of you that's been waiting 200,000 years to move. Subscribe to this channel for more.